good. So I have not been in this posing room in probably like a month and a half, maybe 2 months, because I just haven't been pushing bodybuilding as hard. I'm also a little bit heavier than when I was last in here. I'm looking a little bit soft. Yeah, this is my sad attempt at posing today. I also have no idea, literally no clue, how to fucking do a lat spray. I think probably after Max, I'll spend some time doing more bodybuilding, and then I'm not gonna say this like it's set in stone because I really don't know. But depending on the outcome of nationals and then what's going on with like the pro series and where people decide to go to compete, I might move up. I don't know. I've been pretty happy with how my body weight sits at like 189, 190, and I wouldn't be opposed to slowly building into the 90, but again, I can't guarantee anything. Even if the outcome I want happens, I'm just throwing it out there. It's a possibility. I don't know. But I've been sitting at this weight for so many years that I think, even though I've been at an elite level for a while, that just having sat and forced myself to stay as an 83, that if I were to move up, those gains would be pretty nice. And I think like a long-term, medium to long-term goal would be to total 2K as a 90. I think that would be pretty sick. So we'll see what happens.
So I figured we'd get back on the voiceover game. You guys have been requesting these for a long time. I know you guys miss my crispy voice, and honestly, I'm feeling up for it. I'm laying on my couch, which just came in. It is so comfortable. Lights are off, lit a candle, in my bathrobe. I'm comfortable. And this was day 3 squats. This was Saturday. And I'm honestly just so relieved and so confident with squats because I've been able to perform at an incredibly high level, not just once a week, but twice a week. This 485 flew, and I knew that my 600-pound single for the day was going to move exceptionally well. Now, this Saturday session is not really meant to be pushed incredibly hard. My heaviest single of this prep will come at 2 weeks out on this session, but the highest peak intensity is going to usually be that Wednesday squat day, so the day 2. That triple is meant to be pushed pretty hard going into comp, whereas for most of the weeks, with the exception of that week 4, the singles are just meant to be pocket. They're meant to be practice, probably somewhere in the opener to second attempt range. But as you guys are about to see, this 600-pound squat moves incredibly easily. We'll probably be opening somewhere in this range. Obviously, as we get closer to comp, we'll be able to tell. But speed was great. Depth was plenty good. And yeah, I'm just very confident with squats and just very thankful that both from a programming standpoint and a mental standpoint, things have come together. We figured out that I couldn't really tolerate high rep volume the way that I used to on squats. And I think from the mental side of things, I'm just much more calm, more confident nowadays, and just not really stressing myself out about training. You know, we talked about in that first episode of this series how you can't fill a 1-gallon container with 2 gallons of water. You just can't do it. And I've always talked about, you know, how badly you have to want things, how hard you have to work. And that's absolutely true. But I think that if you overstress yourself or overexpend yourself, you end up negatively affecting the things that you care about the most, both the things that you're trying to focus on and the things that end up getting neglected as a result. And, you know, honestly, there are numbers that I get very excited about hitting. There are obviously sessions that I still anticipate. But for the most part, I'm not really stressing or thinking about the gym except for when I'm there. The numbers I trust will come. And that's the way that I've been looking at things this prep. And it's been just working out really well for me. You know, there have been times in the past where I felt like I really had to force a certain weight on the bar. And I'm just letting the numbers come to me now. And, you know, it's been a breath of fresh air, honestly. The music choices that I listen to are much less hype. They're much less anxiety inducing. You know, there's music that you put on and you might put it on for the fight or flight response. And that's fine. You can use that adrenaline to your advantage. But the music I listen to now doesn't really elicit that at all for me. It's a very, very calm approach. So that was pretty much all of my powerlifting work for the day that you guys just saw. If you'll notice, there's a handsome man in a trucker hat doing these tricep extensions here. This is my buddy Pedro. This was actually the first time I've met Pedro in person. He's an Instagram friend. He is probably one of the smartest people that I've ever met or had the pleasure of speaking with. Pedro's Instagram is @Thucydides. I'm going to put his username in the description. I unfortunately have not been able to tag him in a lot of stories that I would like to share with you guys because according to Zuckerberg, he's violated a lot of the COVID guidelines over the past year and a half, which we know that means that you've just been right about everything. But at any rate, Pedro was on the east coast of Florida. He's normally in Tampa, and he drove from Palm Beach all the way down to Miami to get a session in, and I was very grateful for that because we had a great time. Pedro is studying molecular biology. The man's an absolute tank. He just has so much passion for his work, and I've learned a lot about nutrition and molecular biology from him over the past year or so, I would say. You know, when he got down here, I was already done with my powerlifting stuff, and I knew he was going to work hard and get in a good workout. And once I finished up, he was like, "What do you want to do?" And I told him, you know, I can do arms. I could train arms pretty hard. I can't really go crazy with any sort of chest or shoulder work just because, you know, I am 4 weeks out and change. But I was down for an arm workout, and I told him, you know, I'm going to put you through a pretty intense arm workout, and that's just what we did. It was very intense, but it was very well structured. Excuse me, losing my sultriness there. And the first exercise of the day was this chest height, long head tricep extension, pressing out, trying to keep the elbow in one place. This is going to stress the long head of the bicep in its lengthened position. A very, very taxing exercise. And it's one of those movements where you do it right, you do it hard. You don't really need much. You know, you don't really need much after that. And it was pretty crazy. So after that, we moved over to this Nautilus machine, which I was so thankful when I came down to Miami and joined Paradise to see that they had this machine, because the gym that I trained at in New York, ProFit, had this, and it was one of my favorite tricep exercises. With this, you know, slightly abducted and flexed shoulder position, you're going to get a bit more of the medial head. You're going to get in the lengthened to mid position is going to be most of the stress. And as you guys, I'm sure, have experienced, there's like a certain grindability associated with certain machines. And this one has to be just one of the most intense that I've ever worked on, meaning that you can push yourself to a true RP10 on this like no other. And, you know, it's not really until you empty the tank on an exercise like this that you realize just how much more you have in the tank past what maybe you previously thought was failure. So we absolutely crushed ourselves on this machine. There's actually one set that him and I did that we ended up assisting each other, just pushing from the back of the handles, that I wish I had gotten on video, but I didn't expect us to be taking it that hard on this exercise. So these tricep exercises that we did, I'll put in the description just like what the actual workout was. But like I said, look at that goofy smile. What a handsome man. You know, like I said, with a well-structured workout, you get the intent of every exercise, and you milk it for what it's worth. If you want to train the long head, you get the long head. You want to train the lengthened position, you train the lengthened position. There's no repetitiveness in the exercise selection here, and I think that yields more bang for your buck. And obviously, hard work trumps all when it comes to bodybuilding, but I think that just having a better knowledge base and an exercise selection really does maximize the time that you spend in the gym. Pedro was really enjoying this workout. There were a couple times where he's like, "Oh, I've never done this exercise before. Oh, I've never felt my triceps like this before." And, you know, I was happy to put him through it. We had so much good conversation throughout the workout. We obviously had to talk about seed oils. It's obviously a big topic of discussion. You know, Pedro is one of the people who really opened my eyes about a lot of stuff nutrition related and just health overall, and how, you know, we interact with our environment and things that we should be avoiding, things that we should be seeking more of. And if you want to check that out, like I said, head over to his Instagram, specifically referring to seed oils. Check out his story highlights that are on PUFAs, and then his story highlights on epoxides, which are going to be a byproduct that's created in the body, which, you know, some believe will have effects on mitochondria, some will believe will have effects on DNA. And we just nerded out at the gym, like between sets. That was the shit we were talking about. There's a very commonly cited study for the people who say that there's nothing wrong with eating PUFAs or seed oils that refers to how, seed oils are going to reduce LDL cholesterol. And we talked about the concept of foam cell formation and how LDL is usually just a correlative and something that goes up along with other things that directly influence foam cell formation. So we just were oddballs or odd ones out in the gym talking about stuff like this. But, it was our first time meeting and we had limited time together, so we were going to get everything in while we could. We actually had a really, really interesting conversation at one point about IQ because, we were talking about his academic experience, my academic experience, diets, interplay with all of that. And Pedro had actually tried like a carnivore or keto style diet at one point in his life. And he mentioned how just the ability to think quickly, process information, come up with solutions to problems felt stifled a bit. And the second he reincorporated glucose, it was just night and day. And our brain needs glucose. I think there's a very obvious it's a very obvious concept to many, right? That we need carbs, we need glucose. And one of the things we were talking about associated with IQ is obviously we know that there's like an associated neuronal efficiency that you're just able to fire very quickly and all of that. But we were wondering, and again, neither of us are experts in this area, but we were talking about maybe if people with genius IQs, because that's really the topic we got on, like how are people who are genius, how do they think of uncommon solutions to problems? How do they synthesize new concepts? How do they retain information so well? Like, is there also a huge metabolic disparity between the brains of geniuses and just, your average person? Do they use up glucose better than other people or more efficiently than other people? And does that play a role? And while neither of us got an answer to this, we were just speculating during our conversation. One thing that we looked up, which we found incredibly interesting, is that there's like this level of dopamine inhibition or lower levels of dopamine in the thalamus of people with genius IQs, which essentially what it allows them to do is not write off certain information as irrelevant. Is kind of the gist of it, which is just such an incredible concept, because what it allows people to do is they take in whatever concepts are in front of them or the environment that's in front of them. And there's a lot of background that our brains normally filter out. And I think that what it allows geniuses to do is essentially not do that, right? They essentially extract more from the conceptual environment that's in front of them, which is just such a cool thing to think about, right? Because that's not just to say, oh, our neurons are firing faster, right? It's multifaceted. And if there's anybody watching this who's like a neuroscientist or has studied stuff like this, I'd be so interested to hear your perspective or what you've learned, and if you could point either of us in the direction of more literature, because this is incredibly interesting to both of us. I actually at one point considered majoring in neuroscience, but was kind of dissuaded from it during my academic career. But anyway, back to the lifting. We missed and didn't even go over the bicep portion of things. We finished up our tricep work with the tricep pushdowns. We moved on to the incline dumbbell curls to start off the bicep work, which is training the biceps in that lengthened position and crushes the biceps. If you do them correctly, it is just an unbelievable burn. And training any muscle group in its lengthened position is probably going to yield higher levels of hypertrophy. And once we finished that, we were smoked. But we moved on to this face-away cable curl, which is kind of the lengthen and mid portion of the bicep. And it's funny to look at videos from previously in the workout to now, because the pump was crazy. Our arms look like they're 2 inches bigger, which I'm not going to complain about. Pedro's not going to complain about. But it was just a crazy intense arm workout. And like I said earlier on, the exercise selection really can make or break the quality of your workout, where you go through 2 or 3 exercises and you feel like you've done, 6 or 7, kind of how you would back in the day, as a high school or college kid, just running from machine to machine, dumbbell rack to dumbbell rack. You don't have that repetitiveness anymore, where you're trying to get a certain quality out of an exercise that you just didn't know didn't provide it. And just with having the intent on everything that we did here, we really got the most out of it. which is why we finished up here with this kind of flexed and slightly abducted preacher curl. It's the Nautilus machine again, just like the bicep equivalent of that tricep exercise we did. Really, really stressing that shortened position, getting the squeeze, getting that peak, which is going back to what I just said. It's like, you're doing an incline dumbbell curl, let's say, and you're really trying to squeeze at the top and you can't feel that squeeze. It's like, well, maybe it's because the point of highest torque is at that lengthened position. And I think if people can just learn some of these basic, physics principles, they'll realize, when they want to get the stretch, quote unquote, on that bicep and really emphasize that intensity or that feeling at that portion. And then when they want to get that real squeeze, that bicep peak going, this would be an exercise that's kind of more appropriate for that, or at least you get the sensation of that all happening much better on an exercise like this. But yeah, I mean, it was really, really fun training with Pedro. Not just for the dialogue, but because it's a different feel when you're training with someone who just goes into the gym and is like, I'm going to crush myself on this day because I want to work hard, right? Pedro is not a powerlifter. He's not a bodybuilder. And there were multiple points during our workout where he was just pushing me to do another rep and another rep and another rep. And while I do try to push my bodybuilding work to failure, he was almost not letting me quit when I wanted to quit, which is just such a useful and valuable thing to have in a training partner in the bodybuilding side of things, because, especially as you become more elite, you can't just add weight to every exercise that you do, especially if the absolute load you're using is not high. You have to incorporate rest pauses, drop sets, cluster sets, partials, all that sort of stuff. That's all different modalities for progressive overload. And, I can't wait for Pedro to come back to Miami. It's going to be a ton of fun. You see us posing here, the weakest seed oil disrespecters right here. But that's where I'm going to end the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I really enjoyed doing this voiceover again. I actually had to re-record it because I did one the first time and noticed I wasn't even recording. And it was a really good one, but there's always novelty and kind of a fresh outlook when you repeat something, and I'm pretty happy with how this one came out. So don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe. Remember, guys, there are no bad days, and I will see you all in the next video, which will be about Wednesday session. Lucky Underwear Wednesday. Hashtag that in the comments. Lucky Underwear Wednesday right now. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.